So I have to say I've already given a math talk and I have a physics talk after this, but I'm a little more nervous being here now in front of all of you. So, and I even have a script. So, well, my freshman year, our campus ministry theme was voices, and so I'm going to go a little full circle for you seniors here. Our campus ministry theme was voices. We talked about where do you hear God's voice? What voices do you hear in your life, and what voices are influencing you to be the person you are? That same year, we had a new university president, and she also talked a lot about calling and vocation. She liked to use a quote by theologian Frederick, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this, and I forgot to ask, Buechner, thank you. And so the quote goes, "Vocation is where our greatest passion meets the world's greatest need." So I'm sure some of you remember that. I see some heads nodding. So between the two, I thought a lot about calling. We talked a lot about calling on campus. So of course, we have several chapel speakers come through, and they all talked about what they heard God's voice calling them to do. A lot of people talked about becoming missionaries in other countries or working for nonprofit organizations. They serve people in need. Some came through and they talked about being called to become pastors and youth ministers, of course, in chapel. And they all had these great stories about God speaking to them. And sometimes God spoke to them clearly, and sometimes it was not so clear. And I really liked listening to these stories about how they were changing the world, and God was calling them to change people's lives and do these great things. And it made me want to go out and do something myself. But I like physics. I thought to myself. I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to be a missionary. Physics is cool. Physics is exciting. It's beautiful. You get to do these really cool demonstrations. And what do you know? I brought a really cool demonstration to show you today. So, the demonstration I have is a demonstration of conservation of angular momentum. So I have here a spinning platform and a bike wheel. So I'm going to need a volunteer. Yes, you in the front. Okay, so I have to do this without my heels on.
Do I have to do this without my heels on?
No. Okay, so I'm going to stand on the platform and I'm going to ask you to give the bike wheel a good spin. Hold on a second. And so all the spin will be in the up and down direction. There's no spin around this way. So what's going to happen is when I turn the bike wheel, I'm going to magically turn. All right, give it a good spin. Okay, so you might want to move. And then we turn it. Whee! And then we come to a stop, and we turn it the other way. Whee! And we come to a stop again. Thank you. I'm going to leave my shoes over there. But how cool is that? Physics gets to explain those kinds of things. And don't ask me to explain right now. I have too many things to think about. But how cool is stuff like that? This kind of thing gets me really excited, and I really enjoy working with it. But all of those inspiring stories that people were telling were about living God's word in direct service, about becoming pastors or missionaries or volunteers. And I wanted to know, does God call people to be physicists? So I got to thinking about where I felt called and where other people around me were feeling calls. And I thought, surely everyone is not called to become something like a pastor or missionary. And I thought, and I finally realized that yes, God does call people to be physicists. God calls all people to go into all sorts of fields, from all sorts of walks of life. The world needs people doing good works and showing God's love in all places. So maybe I am being called to become a research physicist in condensed matter and material science. Maybe I could become someone who works with green technology and helps develop the next solar cell. Maybe I end up on an ethics committee where I help decide how science should be used to make the world a better place. Or maybe right now a call to physics is just a stepping stone to something that I can't see right now. And I thought back to that quote, "Vocation is where our great passion meets the world's greatest need." Now I want you to think about your passion. Maybe your passion is something you're studying right now. Maybe it's something you do with a club or organization. Or maybe it's something you find yourself doing with your friends and your classmates, like being a good listener or being the friendly one. I want you to think about where you find yourself thoroughly and happily engaged in growth and experience. Now think about the ways in which you can serve the world and the people around you with that passion. Will you be the business person who encourages their company to give back and become involved in the community? Will you be the medical researcher working on cures for a disease? Will you be the person in the office who has a constant smile and a listening ear, who's always there when someone needs a friend? As for me, I am a month away from graduation, and I'm really still not sure exactly what I'm being called to do. And that's okay too. Sometimes hearing our call is not easy. Sometimes it's just something we have to wait patiently for, living a loving life in the meantime. And sometimes our call is in the waiting. No matter your career, your destination, life is in the journey. God uses us where we are. He knows our strengths and how best to use them, even if we don't. So yes, you can be called to be a physicist. Thank you.